and then this evening at your house, right? With another program, I have a short period to speak there again, and we'll speak about it. We'll go over on Leela at that time. But this morning, we'll speak a little bit about nature of Govardhana, which is theologically complex, as most things are in Gaudiya Vaishnavism. And in that regard, I'm going to turn to a prayer from the Bhagavatam. And this is really the second time in the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam that Govardhana Hill is glorified. And we'll return to the first time. Not cite this verse that we'll be discussing in greater detail. Hantaya Madhurya Abala Haridasa Bharjo Yad Ramakrishna Charana Sparsha Pramodha Manam Tanoti Sahaboganayos Tayojat Haniyasu Yavasa Kandara Kandamulai. This verse spoken by Lord Sundaris, and with astonishment, Anta, they say, Advi, the hill. These Abala girls speak, they say, oh, how astonishing is the hill. He is Hari's best servant because he has rapture for the touch of Rama and Krishna's feet, and because he honors both of them, who are accompanied by the group of cowboy boys and cows, and are thus supplied by them with drinks and nice grass and caves and fruits and flowers and so forth. So before we discuss this significant verse, let me refer to earlier in the Bhagavatam in the 11th chapter. 11th chapter of the 10th canto, we find the crossing of the Jamuna on the part of the Brajbasis, who prior to living in Vrindavan at the base of Govardhana, were living in Gokul Mahalan. And there it was decided that it was time for them to move. A bit of a nomadic group following the needs of the cows, that being fresh pasture and so forth. So they had a village council presided over by Nanda Maharaj and his brothers and the wise Upananda, the elder of the brothers, suggested that we make our way across the river and set up camp and village there, because in that area is the great hill, which would Govardhana, which would increase and nourish cows, given the many things that are implied here in the verse that I just cited that Govardhana provides, not only for the cows, but as the gopis are saying here, also for Ram and Krishna and friends. And of course, if we dive into Leela and what they're saying here, we understand for themselves, and their Ram with Krishna also Govardhana plays a significant role. So the decision was made, and their covered wagons, if you will, they floated across, more settled in that area. And so with this begins also I should say the Kumar Leela, the childhood Leela of Krishna, is now waning and coming to an end, and his Govardhana, or boyhood pastimes, are beginning. And of course, in the middle of his boyhood pastime, with his boyhood pastimes, in the middle section of them, his romanticism also starts to, romantic sentiments begin to develop. So all this is in connection with moving really to the base and under the protection of Giriraj. Giriraj means the Raj, the king of mountains. And we might wonder how he got such a name. There are lots of mountains. And for that, we can turn to other texts, such as the Garga Samhita. Sometimes it's thought that the Garga Samhita was a later text that came after the Goswamis, the founding acharyas of our Sampradaya, had written their text and established the philosophy and theology of Gaudiya Vaishnavism largely. But there is a reference from Sanatana Goswami to Garga Samhita, just a bit of information for you about the text. I have a copy of Puja Prachita translated. It's a long book, Garga Samhita, into the Bengali from Sanskrit. And of course, it's named after Gargacharya, who was very prominent sage and rishi, priest, if you will, to the Braj Leela, in that, among other things, he presided over the name-giving ceremony for Krishna and Ram in the cowshed at the behest of Nanda Maharaj, in secrecy, given the danger that lurked within the Prakat Leela, given the temperament and demonic disposition of Kamsa and his henchmen and so on and so forth. So Garga Muni, Gargacharya, and Gargi, his daughter, they're prominent players in Leela. Garga Muni and Purnamasi have a close connection with regard to determining the unfortunate circumstance, as it would appear ostensibly in the Prakat Leela, that being that, although in every other respect he was suitable, unfortunately, according to his astrological chart, Krishna will be leaving the Braj and becoming a famous person in the world, and leaving behind the smallness, the provincial nature of the village in his early childhood, and he's just beginning at that time. He was just beginning to become an adolescent, and his whole life, afterwards, as a prince. Certainly, this would be forgotten. His childhood pastimes, and although he is by far the most suitable husband for all of the gopis, according to his chart, he can't marry them. He's going to go away and he's going to marry someone. It's not in his chart. His romanticism with the gopis, it's Parakiya. It's hidden. He'll be married to so many queens, statesmen with big Upanishadic texts like the Bhagavad Gita, and so on and so forth. Of course, we know his heart will always remain in Vrindavan. We cited a verse the other day, Mayi Bhakti Bhutanam Amritatvaya cultivated. He spoke to the gopis at Kurukshetra when Dwarka and Vrindavan had a brief meeting, right, during the solar eclipse. And there was a big celebration at Kurukshetra, and Krishna rode in with Balarama, Prince Balarama, with them on elephants, with praise of sages and Brahmins and so forth. Oh, the coward people took advantage and came in their wagons bearing milk and so on and so forth. Very touching scene in which, given the verse I just cited, Krishna makes the point that they look like I'm here, I'm there. Of course, wherever their heart is, that's where my heart lies. So, so regarding Samhita, it's a very interesting book, and it delves into the previous lives, for example, of Kamsa's henchmen and how they took birth and were destined to meet with Krishna and meet with their demise, for the most part, or chastisement in the case of some. But with regard to Govardhana Hill, then it's mentioned there that in the Aprakat Lila, the invisible or unmanifest Lila, that Krishna announced to Radha that he wanted her to go and participate with him in the Prakat Lila, manifest in this world, but she was reluctant to go without all that Vrindavan consists of with regard to its natural environment and Govardhana Hill. Without Govardhana, without the Yamuna, which, according to the Ballava Sampradaya, which was, as I mentioned, Sri Ballavacharya, contemporary Mahaprabhu, and they wrote their Rag Marg Sampradaya as well. They have special emphasis on Govardhana, as we do. It's slightly different, but they also locate the Rasa Leela of Radha and Krishna in a different place than us, which is near Govardhana, where they are convinced the Jamuna used to run by. After the Rasa Leela, they bathe in the Jamuna, and they have very high regard for the Jamuna. But without the Jamuna, anyway, the point is, and point part and Govardhana, etc. How could she go? She gave assurance that they would be there too, but how are you going to move a mountain? Right? So Krishna, his internal potency, made an arrangement. And the most beautiful of mountains from Aprakat Leela itself appeared within a mountain range on earth and in the meditative world. Well, mountains have parents and children, and they can fly too, so forth. So Roma something, I think, was the name of his father. And all the mountains agreed that this Giriraj was the Raj of Giris, of mountains. You can imagine, given his origins, if you will, manifesting in a sense out of the heart's desire of Radha. And in due course, then the sage Pulatsya, I think his name was, as recorded in Gargasamhita, came and was hosted, as sages would be, by Giriraj's father, if you will, and who dutifully and appropriately according to Dharma asked, "Is there anything I can do for you, any service?" And he said, "Well, I'm going to Benares, and that's the kind of sage I am. It's not the holiest of places for Gaudiya Vaishnavas, but more of a capital for Vivishesh and Sunyavadi. Mahaprabhu Sri Chaitanya Dev, of course, went there on its way to Vrindavan. It's very interesting how this Leela of Mahaprabhu's visiting Benares, Kashi, appears in Chaitanya Charitamrita. It appears before the rest of the Leela narrative, and then it appears later on in the chronological sense of the Leela. It appears twice, once with disregard for the chronological, the timing in which it appears as Mahaprabhu's Leela manifests. But after his Mangalacharan, culminating in the glorification of the Panchatattva, he begins to talk about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's dispensation of Harinam Sankirtan and so on and so forth. Suddenly we find ourselves in Benares, and he's talking about it there in the conversion of Prakashananda Saraswati. So the implication of this, of course, is, and Krishna, this is what is implied there, that you can't go to Vrindavan without getting that Mayavad out of your head and heart. And these two don't go together. Bhakti and Nirvishesh Brahman or Advaitavad, Shankar, and that was the capital of that. Appropriately, we can appreciate from the Vrindavan point of view, my god sister Jadurani, who is affectionately referred to as Shamarani by Bhaktivedanta Narayan Maharaj or Siksha Guru. He's a famous disciple of Prabhupada, after some time, I heard this, and I hope it's accurate, hearing from Narayan Maharaj about the Braja Leela, the nature of the Prayojan Tattva of Gaudiya Vaishnavism and so on and so forth. She didn't like to chant the Pranam mantra of Prabhupada, which he wrote himself, which says, Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvisesha Sunyavadi Paschatadesha Tarane. She didn't like to chant that because it says, well, he's the servant of Saraswati and he goes throughout the world, Gauravani Prachar, even the Prachar, teachings, preaching about repeating the words of Gaur, the Vani of Gaur, the precepts of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And in the context of that, Nirvishesha Shunyavadi, in the Western world, uprooting Nirvishesh Shunyavadi, this Mayavad conception and its extension, in one sense, form of Shunyavad, Buddhist perspective. And these are the capitals of these, in many respects, are Kashi or Benares. He said, if you want to eat, go to Gujarat. If you want to Gujarat, if you want to die, go to Kashi. If you want to live and celebrate, go to Vrindavan. So that's a place of the heart. But it's a bit of a dry place. All the dying cremation gods there. So anyway, she didn't like to chant that anymore, I heard, because it doesn't say anything about his Braj Bhakti heart, and she liked the mantra that would describe more, his attainment and aspiration and so forth. But the point I'm making here, Shamaranaji, is that in order, Prabhupada's point, and a big point in Chaitanya Charitamrita is that Mahaprabhu is suddenly he starts talking about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu going to Vrindavan, which happens much later, as I'm saying, in the Leela narrative chronologically. And he converts Prakashananda Saraswati and so forth. The implication is what he wants to make clear at the beginning of the book. This book is about going to Vrindavan. There's no doubt about that. Residing there. And of course, if we go there through Gaur Sundar, through Nadia, worship in Nadia, worship in Navadvip, live in Vrindavan. That's the teaching. Right? Through Dasya Bhakti to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sakya or Madhurya Bhakti, Rasa will come in the heart. Such worshippers. But the point is, if we go there, to Vrindavan, through Navadvip, then they say, "Where are you coming from?" I say, "From Naboo, open up the door." I always like the fact that we used to go annually to for a month-long festival. We'd drop in 2 weeks in Mayapur, 2 weeks in Vrindavan. And when we would go from Naboo to Vrindavan, we would take the Radharani Express. That was the name of the train, Radharani Express. In Mathura. There we'd have to take a Tonga. There were no cars at that time in Vrindavan. Take a Tonga or bicycle, rickshaw from Mathura to Vrindavan. What Krishnadas is telling us implicitly by suddenly placing that Leela there, which involves the conversion of Prakasananda Saraswati, who was a big Mayavadi, is that you cannot go to Vrindavan without getting this Mayavadi out. So Prabhupada's campaign against Nirvishesh Shunyavadi, properly understood, is all about going to Braj, to Vrindavan. When we get there, we're talking about Garga, yeah, the Garga. And there we find the history of Govardhana, and is it Pulatya? Pulatya, sage. What did he ask for? He said, "Give me this mountain, your son, the Giriraj." Why? Because I'm going to Kasi and Benares, and it's all flat there. It's all flat. So I want to bring a little variety and such a nice hill. And so the father of Giriraj fainted at the thought of losing his son, but he could not go against the Dharma and his offer of ask me something and let me do some service. So he had to give up his son. His son Giriraj didn't want to go either, didn't want to leave his father, but didn't want his father to be criticized. So he acquiesced to the sage's request with his own thoughts in mind, given his own destiny. And he said, "You can take me wherever you go, but wherever you settle down, stop. Now I'm going to stay there. I'm not going anywhere else. I'm not moving more than once." Big deal to move the mountain. So the sage agreed, and they were on their way. And of course, they came over the Braj region, and by Giriraj's own arrangement, the sage had to answer the call of nature. So he landed down in Braj, and just for a moment, wasn't settling there, but he set the hill down, answered the call of nature, and then Giriraj showed the beginning of showing his astasiddhis. All he's Yogeshwar, he's Krishna himself. He has all the mystic siddhis. So Lagima, Garima, Anima, Mahima, Prapti. These are all. This is a small thing for him. Garima means becoming heavy. No one can move him. The yogi has that. He may be frail and small, but no one can pick him up. The Giriraj became so heavy. No one, the sage could not pick him up. So he became angry. You tricked me. I wanted to take you Benares, and I'm staying here. He cursed Giriraj to become smaller than a sesame seed every year, or something like that. It becomes smaller and smaller. But he has all, I say, he has all such cities. Lagima is an obvious one, right? Lagima means lighter than air, levitation. Because we know a 7-year-old boy can't lift a mountain. So everyone in Braj understood the mystery of the hill. He showed his Lagima city and elevated. Krishna only kind of balanced him. That's all. There wasn't actually holding. To whatever extent he might have been, well, his friends would help him with their sticks. Garima, Lagima, Mahima, bigger than the biggest. During the Govardhana Leela, we see he became so big, and he expanded himself in so many ways. Of course, showed himself to be none different from Krishna at the same time. Krishna was sitting down below with the cowards, worshiping him, and showing himself to be the Lord. And Mahima, Anima, smaller than the smallest. He's fully present in the smallest Shiva, the smallest stone. All the pastimes of Krishna are found in the smallest stone of Govardhana. Every part of him is one. One part is this. The part is the same as the whole. So he makes himself available in his smallest form to go. This big hill, so heavy. It comes right into your heart and into your home. So many devotees. And there's all the secrets of Braj are found. Because he's towering up over Braj, you can see everything. And so many pastimes, infinite pastimes are performed on his own body in the caves and slopes and so on and so forth. He knows everything. Prabhupada used to say, do you think after reading and writing all these books that we're just worshiping a stone? There's a book that I mentioned the other day by, I think it's David Haberman, the famous scholar who became a Balaba Vaishnava, very favorable to the Gaudiyas, and spent time in Braj doing research. And what's his point?
The smallest stone, the smallest.
Yeah. So he was writing about, thank you, he was writing about how all these villagers were worshiping the stone, and he was writing for his Western and academic audience, and he kept trying to kind of like help them make sense out of it, like worshiping a stone, that's crazy, kind of idea. Was what he was kind of seemed to be anticipating in the minds of the Western readers, and even got that kind of input, from some people that he talked to about it. We returned to, but they were sitting a stone. What is that? He labored hard to talk about that. He didn't try to reason so much, but he just talked about the faith of the people, and they believed it like this and so on and so forth. But as I was reading it, I thought, this is kind of silly here, because it doesn't matter what religious tradition you go to, there's unbelievables, right? There's the whole thing is beyond belief. When I speak of belief, I mean like beyond reason. Thank God there's something beyond reason, right? Which fits between the ear. There's a heart, and it transcends the limits of the mind, the limits of speech, and so forth. So, for example, he's talking to let's say he's talking to a Christian audience. Well, they got their miracles too. Some wine and some bread, that burns in God's body, and it's as weird as worshiping a stone. It's peculiar, or as miraculous, let's say. The atheist can't see any miracles, and the devotee sees only miracles everywhere. How did a tree get inside of the seed? We become accustomed to that, so we think it's normal. We can explain how there's a seed inside of the tree. Have we explained why? Why there's a seed inside? That is totally, that question is off the scientific and rational map. The why. Why does it exist at all? This very question transcends the limits of the mind. It can't be answered by the mind, but it's here. Is there no purpose? Why are we striving so hard to find a purpose and a meaning? And say embrace the no meaning. There is no meaning. That's the meaning. As humans, we need meaning because the Atma is a unit of quality, not quantity, quality, qualitative experience, feelings, value. As I often say, matter wouldn't matter unless it mattered to us. Right? We invest, project meaning into stones. All of them. Stones, typically, aside from Giriraj, don't, what do we say? I was saying, what is it?
Getting
Stones
blood
don't,
from a stone. Getting blood from a stone. You can't get blood out of a stone.
stones don't think.
Oh.
Stones are thoughts. Stones don't think. Stones are thoughts. What does that mean? We call it a stone. We call it a stone. That's a thought. And it's like this, and it's like that. This is what it means. It's coming from, it's in, what do you call that? A bit of the idealism of Vedanta. The physical world comes out of the mental world. Both of them come out of consciousness proper, the source of which is just Krishna himself, Krishna's student, Swami. So, Garima, Lagima, Anima, Mahima. So he's heavier than the heaviest if he wants to be, no one can pick him up. And if you have in your heart, desire comes to serve, and your Gurudev says, yes, you can serve, go with, you can pick him up very easily. He'll transform himself into a tiny stone. You can pick him up and take him home. And everything that the whole Govardhana witnesses, all witnesses there, the whole stone can tell you everything, all those things. And of course, he levitated in the Govardhana Leela. Lagima, Anima, Lagima, Prapti. Prapti Siddhi means to bring something from a distance, to make it appear. Gold nugget. Mystic. Magic, or is he actually doing Prapti Siddhi? The subtle body, which you can't see, the arm is extending to a distant place and bringing the animal to Alaska. It's possible. It's called Prapti Siddhi. How does it go with him do Prapti Siddhi? Oh, he's constantly doing Prapti Siddhi. Constantly bringing millions of pilgrims to serve him and circumambulate him. They think they're going there, but he's bringing them. He's reaching out all over the world, bringing people. Millions and millions, literally millions of pilgrims go to Govardhana every year, circumambulate in a very dedicated way. In Haberman's book, he's interviewing different devotees of Govardhana. They're a special, species. Even within Gaudiya Vaishnava, made Giriraj the center of their spiritual focus. And one such fellow was doing Dandavat Parikrama, where he would do a Dandavat, bow down, fully stretched out, and they'd place a stone there at the tip of the hands, and then get up and put their feet there and bow down again, going around Govardhana like this. So he was about 2/3 the way around, and he was interviewed by Mr. Haberman, and he said that it had taken him, I think, like 5 years or something like that so far, and he had about 2 more years, to go, and he would be completed. He would have completed the Dandavat Parikrama around Govardhana. That's a lot of devotion for Giriraj. But then Hebron asked him, after you're done, what will you do? He's going to start again. The dark kind of rishis, the sages, our kind of yogis. So anyway, Govardhana settled in this way. In Vrindavan, he wouldn't move. He became Gadima, unmovable. Sage cursed him, and there he sits to this day in Braj. So here, then going to the verse from what's called the Venu Gita. It's the 21st chapter of the 10th canto, and in this chapter, gopis are singing about praising the prowess, the charm of the Venu, Krishna's flute, which they have a very love-hate relationship with, ruining their lives, their dharma, their good reputation, and so on and so forth. Many nice Venuharna Leelas, when the gopis steal Krishna's flute, and the intrigue that ensues, and so forth. But here they're glorifying the flute, or at least speaking about its prowess, and in the context of that, this verse comes. Hankayam Advir Abala Haridasa Varjo. Here in the first, this is a significant verse of the Bhagavatam with regard to Gaudiya Vaishnavism, in that we talked the other day, and we start to enter into Govardhana Lila through Gaur Lila, Madhavendra Puri's establishing the Gopal deity and recreating the Anukut, the big worship of Govardhana in historical time, if you will. This is mytho-historic and meditative beyond time. But in historical time, Madhavendra Puri, as a precursor himself to what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did himself and empowered the Goswamis to excavate the places of Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan. They went, Rup Sanatan, and with their bhava, they felt this happened here, and the people believed them, and the kings believed them, and built monuments and temples to this pastime and that pastime. So it's a whole re-manifesting in the modern world 500 years ago of Vrindavan. It's a huge, this was what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did. Rup Sanatan, he himself, of course, went there. He found Radhakund and Shamakund, which are described in Chaitanya Charitamrita as just being, some small mud puddles, basically. People didn't understand. Later, they were turned into big gods and, built up around there, and sages, devotees came to reside, and so on and so forth. This is all done inaugurated by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And of course, Madhavendra Puri is his Param Guru. So he did this prior to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's coming there with regard to Govardhana, and the Gopal deity revealed himself in the dream, as we heard, and so on and so forth. So when Mahaprabhu came to Vrindavan from Jagannath Puri, and he had the darshan of Govardhana, then he cited this verse. He sang this verse. So it's significant. And later, this is in the Madhya Lila, later in the Antya Lila, which is where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was previously a public figure, has now become a private figure by the force of the result of the way he conducted himself publicly. Ultimately, there should be no distinction between our public and private life. Once I was here in North Carolina at a godbrother's house doing a program, and afterwards, I was talking about Nam Sankirtan. Afterwards, an Indian gentleman was there. He said, "Maharaj, I think that this worship, that is a private thing." So he was like kind of objecting to this idea of being in the public, or getting together with a bunch of people, even in the temple, and chanting. He felt a little uncomfortable about what worship should be for private life. I said, there should be no difference between the public and private. That is worship. We worship properly in the temple, for example. The universality of the deity will become known to us, of course. We think he's just living in a little hole in the wall there. Look across him every now and then so we can do other things. But actually, he's everywhere. By proper worship, we come to experience that. And so then how we conduct ourselves in the temple, we conduct ourselves everywhere. This is a little bit what's coming from Gopi's hearts here. Actually, Raghunath Swami says, Radharani herself spoke this verse, glorifying Maharaj. So she's seeing the mountain and really all animate and inanimate things to be to be bhaktas of Bhagwan, better worshippers than herself. So her own bhav is being projected on others. This is part of like the universality of the Mahabhagavad, which sees Bhagwan everywhere, sees everything worshipping Bhagwan, except for one, me. The Mahabhagavad, Uttamadhikari says, everyone is worshipping Bhagwan. There's all devotees and one demon. And the Ganesh says, everyone's a demon, only I'm a devotee. Maybe not a demon, but they're not worshiping right. They're not worshiping enough. We should avoid that mentality. We can't imitate the Mahabharata, but we can hold it as an idea, understand what the actual real vision is. We see with our 2020 vision, we need glasses badly, badly to see. We need the Shastra Chakra, the eyes of the scripture, to begin to see beyond the limits of our eyes. And that scripture teaches us to apply ourselves in such a way that the heart changes. And in that heart, Shama Sundar manifests. Yam Shama Sundaram Achintya Guna Swarupa. It is inconceivable qualities. Premanjana Churutam Bhakti Vilochanena Chandasarya Guru Yam Shama Sundaram Achintya Guna Swarupam Govindam Adi Purusham. Tamam Bhajam Govindam Adi Purusham. Shama Sundar. The eyes, we're talking about seeing, right? When this goes, these teachings go in the heart, we see with the Shastra Chakshus, we take the scriptural learning, we don't let it stay in our head, we let it go in the heart. We feel one point, we go, that's true. That's right. He's right about it. Then you have to let it go in the heart. Become a stone there, a building block for the foundation of the temple of God and Krishna that we're building in the heart. And as we do that, then we see not with the limits even of Shastra Chakra. Now we see beyond the limits of Shastra. Shruti Vidyam, as Uddhava said when he came to Vrindavan and realized, I thought Krishna sent me here to give a message to the inhabitants, but I see he sent me here to get a message from the inhabitants. I am his guru, his Shastric advisor. I am Shastravit. I know all the scripture, but what I find here is beyond the scripture. It's beyond the scripture. So, Premanjana Charita Bhakti, one gets eyes of love, ears. This should be our sadhana. You chanted for so long, but has the chanting forcibly driven you to weep like the Shamantaka. Clouds and rain that Indra rained down on Vrindavan. Here it's mentioned. Govardhana has all these satyabhavas, tears, hair standing on end. Says you love it. Oh. He's the best servant. Why? Because he's experiencing rapture. Satyagavavas. All the grass is standing up. All the streams and waterfalls are his tears. The change of colors. If you go on Govardhana Hill, you will see white colored stone, yellow colored stone, brown stone, black stone. What you're really seeing is he's changing colors. This is also Satyagavava. He's changing colors. Weeping, hair standing on end. He's this kind of bhakta. Therefore, Radha says, he's the best Haridas, the best servant of Hari. One time, this hill, she's right there, seeing Govardhana. She's pointing to the hill. There's the hill. And it, out of respect, she doesn't mention his name, Govardhana. This is a way of showing respect, just like in the Vedic culture, then the wife will call the husband by his first name, or husband, or something like that. Different culture than we live in, but luckily Gaudiya Vaishnavism fits into our culture too. But she says, this hill, he is Haridas Varja. He is Varja, the best of Haridasas, servants of Hari. And she said, because he's experiencing the Satyagavavas. Mahaprabhu said, he said, Shrotam api upanishadam dure harikatam. Oh, where you can go by embracing the sound gems of the Upanishads, like Tattvam Masi, Aham Brahmasmi, Neti Neti. People think that you go far distance, beyond time and space. How far is that from where we are now? By these sounds, but that will leave you nonetheless far from where you can go by Harikatha, Kampashu Pulakada, where the walking is dancing, the talking is singing. What must be the dancing then? What must be the singing there? Everything is a land of ecstasy. All the movements, Satyagavavas, Anubhavas, relative to the sentiment that dominates the heart, the Staiva, and other internal influences, some of which are mentioned here, are coming from Radha's experiencing as she, the Dainya, Sanjari Bhava, humility. This is expressed here. She's saying, Abhala, we are weak. Bala means strong. We are weak. We are weak because, not because we're ladies, but because we have love for Krishna. And we're trapped. We're not able, given this context of the culture, we're not able to express it. Govardhana just expresses it like a big wave. This comes out and erupts in ecstasy, in rapture, and honors. She says here, Manam Tonoti Saha Goganayos Yad Rama Krishna Charana Sparsha Pramoda. Yad Rama Krishna, Balaram and Krishna are coming and touching Charana Sparsha, touching Sparsha Charana with the feet. And Pramoda, he is showing rapture, ecstasy, and can't be concealed. And he honors them by puja, seva, by offering drink and fruit juices from the fruit trees that grow there, caves to rest in or to hide in. Get shelter from the rain and roots and shoots. And Jiva Goswami in his Gopal Champu mentions this verse in the beginning, where he's just speaking about Braj, its nature, and so forth. Of course, he comes to Govardhana, And he cites this verse. And he expands upon what's said here. Paniya suyaba sakandala kandamulai. It has roots and shoots and bulbs and kandara, caves, and so forth. Through all these things, he's serving Bhagavan. Ram and Krishna here is mentioned. Jiva Goswami lists 64 items of worship. This is the Maha Puja, right? If you do the Seva Puja in the morning to the deity, there are different standards by which you can worship. So the highest standard, 64 items of worship are offered to the deity every morning. You dress in, give them the mirror, boga, incense. So anyway, Jiva Goswami very poetically, it's a beautiful book, Gopal Champu describes how Govardhana is providing all 64 items of worship, puja for Krishna. So from the puja, from the worship, from the seva, comes the rapture. He's in he does such big seva. He's in ecstasy, showing this up. It's all manifesting uncontrollably. And in her dainya, her humility is about, we are just village girls and, we love Krishna, but we're too shy to express it. We're hiding it. Now, to date, they haven't, Rasa Leela hasn't occurred yet. So it's even more, suppressed and so forth. So she's kind of lamenting in humility our unfortunate situation compared to Govardhana. And also with humility, she's saying we've learned from the scriptures that we should revere saintly persons. Who could be more saintly than this person, Mount Govardhana? Haridas Varya, she says, he's the best of the servants of Hari for reasons that we've been mentioning. So we should take shelter with him, he says. We should serve him. That's what the scriptures say. And if we serve the sadhus, then maybe our heart's desire will be fulfilled. We can't express our heart's desire to anybody and everybody, but we could talk to Govardhana about it. He's a sadhu. Sadhus fulfill the desires of everyone. Right? This is, because kind of the common idea, right? You go to the sadhu and ask for, can you give me a son? Give me a wife. Can you give me a job? He has much more to offer, of course. She has much, can be the case, much more to offer. Of course, in the Braj, gopis want Krishna as their husband. So it has and ostensibly it looks like karma mohan, right? But it is not varnashram dharma, it's prema dharma. Right? Prema dharma. So with the worship of Govardhana itself, which looks like animism, I guess we'll talk about that this evening, is the worship of nature, but of course Krishna shows himself to be on the hill, and this is Vrindavan place. Only I should be worshipped, not Indra and other gods. Only if we do so in relation to him, like the gopis did, worshipping Katyayani to get Krishna as the husband, worshipping Govardhana to get Krishna as the husband. This is a beautiful verse of the gopis, and they're telling us here, Radharani is telling us, as Raghunath Das Goswami informs us, she spoke it, as I mentioned, that Giriraj is amongst servants of Hari, he is the best, Haridas Varya. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in his commentary says this word Haridas is used two other places in the Bhagavatam with regard to the wonderful service of Yudhisthira Maharaj during the Rajasuya. During the Rajasuya ceremony where Yudhisthira was crowned as the emperor, we saw to it that one of the things that has to happen during the Rajasuya sacrifice ceremony is that the most worshipable person in the audience has to be selected for the initial puja. So Krishna was selected, of course, the Maharaj. A nice arrangement was made. So he is such a nice Haridas. Right? Yudhishthira's composition, emotional composition, if you will, is Sakya, Sakya mixed with Dasya and little what's how it's called Sankul Bhav, similar to Balaram, Sankul Bhav. They're bundled together. And in Bhagavatam, the other Haridas that's mentioned is Uddhava. Uddhava in the 47th, I think it's the 47th chapter of the 10th canto. He is sent from Mathura by Krishna to bring a message, as I said earlier, ostensibly to the inhabitants of the gopis, only to find out that from the gopis that, well, he had something to learn there himself. And it was mind-blowing for him, right? But in doing the biddings of Krishna, bidding himself with education, further education, he very much pleased Krishna. Uddhava was a very, very dear person to Krishna. His composition, emotionally, Sthayi Bhav, is Dasya combined with Sakya. And when he goes to Vrindavan, as he was sent by Krishna, then the Sakya comes to the fore, and it's Pranay. Pranay is a characteristic of Sakya, principal characteristic of Sakya, and it also is prominent in Madhurya Rasa. You won't find it in Dasya, you won't find it in Sakya, because in those, or excuse me, in Vatsalya. Because in those two relationships, there's a clear difference between the parent and the child, or the teacher and the student, but friends, they're equals. And there's a sense of intimacy, of pranay and equality in Madhurya Rasa. This pranay is like when the cowherd boys, they may touch Krishna with their feet. It's just like touching their own bodies. There's no difference. They wrestle into the ground. So, Uddhava experiences this pranay aspect of his Sakya in Braj. Going there was like transformation for Uddhava, very, very close to Krishna. There's a whole Uddhava Gita. He spoke the Gita again to Uddhava. Practically, you see there's so many parallels between Uddhava Gita and Bhagavad Gita. Krishna speaking Bhagavad Gita to a Kshatriya Arjuna friend whose friendship is mixed with Dasya. He's just the opposite. Uddhava's Dasya mixed with friendship. So the Dasya is prominent in Uddhava. But when he goes to the Braj, it comes to the fore, and he was successful delivering the message, so he's described here as Haridas, very dear to Krishna for that. But here, the word Haridas is used in reference to Govardhana and Haridas Varya. Amongst the Haridasas, so saying there are other Haridasas, this one's the best. This one's the best. And because all of the ways in which he serves Krishna with, for example, his whole body, everything about him. We might serve with our hands, with something, with our minds, with our ears, with our tongue, with his whole body he's giving. So now, that said, there are different thoughts coming in the minds of great devotees as to further pursuing and identifying the Dasya composition, if you will, because all of these, whether it be Sakya Rasa or Madhurya Rasa, it's all Dasya, it's all service, right, in another sense. So what kind of servant is he? What is his emotional makeup and so forth, right? You can see he's serving in ecstasy, he's serving like we should serve the deity. If the deity starts talking to you, oh God, you got problems now. You cannot have another life. Give me this, give me that, do this, do that. Because he's the supreme enjoyer, right? Govardhana is doing that, right? Govardhana is Krishna, right? We know from the Govardhana Leela, he's Krishna. But here, the other side, he's also a devotee of Krishna. It's peculiar, but it's not that peculiar in Gaudiya Vaishnavism. where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna. And he's the devotee of Krishna, for example, right? So different thoughts have risen in the hearts of great devotees as to looking further into who he is. In Rupa Goswami's drama, Dan Keli, which takes place at Govardhana, where Krishna sets up a toll booth and with his Dharmasakas and prevents the gopis from going where they're going, selling without paying the tax. They have to pay the tax. Of course, the tax that he wants is Radha's love. He doesn't quite get it. There are a number of iterations of the Dan Keli. We have two from Gaudiya, one from Rupa Goswami, and one from Radha Das Goswami. There are earlier ones from like what's his name? Anyways, a couple of earlier not Chandidas. Chandidas. In the Subal Mangal, it's a book that said that they said there that Subal previously appeared as Chandidas. Chandidas were very nice poems about Radha and Krishna. Many appeared as feelings are there. But Haridas in Rupa Goswami's Dan Keli, Haridas has his own prior one, but in Rupa Goswami we find Vrinda Devi turns, looks at Govardhana and says, this hill is better than Ananta Seish. Because Govardhana is long, more than it is high. It has many peaks. So she said, he has, like Ananta, many peaks, because Ananta has many heads. With all those peaks, he's proclaiming the glory of Braj and Krishna. And he makes, while Ananta provides a bed for Vishnu, right? A serpent bed and an umbrella over his head. Giriraj does all that and much more. Right? He serves as the umbrella, which is a royal insignia. So when Krishna lifts to go down hill, he's actually, one of the implications of this is the scripture is saying he is whatever Varaha is and more, whatever Matsya is and more. This is the symbol. He's got the umbrella over his head. He's the Godhead. After all, I mean, Ra saved the earth. Right. Vishnu saves the world at the time of devastation. So the Shamantaka means the devastation, the clouds of the rains of devastation, and Krishna saved everybody, saved the earth and the umbrella. Anyway, he serves as the umbrella. He serves as a bed for Krishna too, but in every other way is the point. He gives his whole body, everything to serve Krishna. So Vrinda Devi says he's better than better than Ananta Seish. He's a super Ananta Seish. He has many heads proclaiming peaks, glorifying and providing a playground for Krishna's pastimes. Not just a place to sit down, but an entire playground. I mean, it's just, can you imagine? We have to wait for the climb Govardhana Hill ourselves, but what mysteries are to be found there. If you know me, I like to go out and explore and find out. I used to go over every nook and corner of Sardarari. Look at the hollow in this tree over here. That thing, this rock over there. So to explore the Govardhana, right, in all of the ways in which it is providing a playground for Krishna's pastime. So in effect, my point is what Vrinda Devi is identifying Govardhana with Balaram. He is more than an Ananta Seish. Ananta Seish is his partial expansion. And he is Bhagavan, and he is serving Bhagavan. Right? That's Balaram. It said That Chaitanya Charitamrita says, Bhakta Abhiman, the Abhiman of a Bhakta, the kind of disposition, sensibility of I'm a devotee. Bhakta Abhiman say, Mool Bhakta Abhiman say Balaram. Balaram is the root, the mool, the root of this conceit of being a devotee in all the devotees. So he's the biggest devotee in that sense. So given this statement, there's room theologically for some to think, oh, the hill is about manifestation of Balaram. Some devotees take white stones from there and consider them Balaram. Put them next to black stones, worship them. That's Krishna and Balaram. No? So there's some reference to support that kind of idea. And in the Bhava Sampradaya, given the manifestation on earthly manifestation of Govardhana coming in a sense from the heart of Radharani, as I mentioned, she desired nothing but Radha. So they developed that idea. They look at here as a manifestation of Radha's heart, and they worship the stones as Radha. It's different in our Sampradaya, but there are our Sampradaya also. These are different ideas, what it means by Haridas-varya. Going, looking, and what exact servant is he, and so forth. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he says that Govardhana is in Sakyarasa and all the hills of Braj, but Govardhana particularly. This is a very Gaudiya idea. Oh, yes. But because he's so involved in facilitating romantic leelas of Radha and Krishna, we would have to qualify that. What kind of Sakha? Must be a Narma Sakha. Right? Those type of friends, Krishna, they participate in this romantic affair. So, given our own Guru Maharaj's Prabhupada's sentiment being as such, we would like to think of Govardhana in that way. This is the best servant. This is the best. Haridas. This idea is the best idea of service. Right? Gopas will hear this. Those in Sakiras will hear this verse, and they'll think of it in a particular way. Right? Those in Madhurya Ras think of it a little differently. One example of that is, of course, here it's mentioned that what Yad Rama Krishna Charana Sparsha Pramoda, seeing the feet of Ram and Krishna touching the hill becomes ecstatic. Pramoda, it expresses Sattvic bhavas and rapture, ecstatic rapture, rasa. But so those in Sakyarasa, do you see what Radharani is saying? How attractive are Krishna and Balaram, right? But Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur was very, invested in Madhurya Rasa. He always gives it a Madhurya Rasa type of interpretation, and he says, well, it can also be looked at. That's true, but Krishna, Ram, Krishna, Charana, Sparsha. We take the word Ram, not to refer to Balaram per se, but to refer to the pleasurable nature of his Sparsha Charana, the touch of his feet. Take Balaram out of the picture, or the gopis are mentioning Ram overtly, because if anybody should overhear them and they're just speaking about they love Krishna, there'll be a problem. Krishna and Balaram, the two sons of Nanda and their friends, there they are. It's hard to talk about them like that, but they're a little shy and concerned they might be overheard, caught. So in a covert way, they're actually speaking about their love for Krishna exclusively, and not even seeing Ram. They can't even see him. Their eyes are only on, of course, Ram's eyes are only on Krishna as well. So we need a Madhurya Rasa Bhakti to go into it in more detail, but many nice meanings, feelings, and so forth drawn from this beautiful verse. And as I say, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu cited this verse when he came to Vrindavan and had the darshan of Govardhana. At that time, he wanted to have the darshan of the Gopal deity upon Tripurari, but because the deity was on the hill, Mahaprabhu would not walk on the hill. And he taught us that Gaudiya Vaishnavas in their sadhaka days, they won't walk on the Govardhana out of respect for the hill. But what happened, of course, at that time is the Gopal deity arranged for some Muslims to attack the temple on the top of the hill and alerted the priests ahead of time by his own arrangement. And they took the deity down from the hill. And he was residing in a place where Mahaprabhu could go. So he arranged, the deity, Gopal deity arranged to give darshan to him. So you have to go beyond the surface, right? The deities are mystical in what they give life. Right? So Mahaprabhu got the darshan. And same thing happened to Rupa Goswami. Rupa Goswami came to Vrindavan after Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he heard that Mahaprabhu came there. Mahaprabhu would not walk on Govardhana Hill, so he would not walk. But he wanted to see the deity. The deity did the same thing. Came down. Gave the darshan to Rupa Goswami. Later, I mentioned, we'll conclude with this. This verse was cited by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the Anti-Lila. In the Anti-Lila, as I said, his public life was ending. He conducted himself in his public life such that just by the force of the way he conducted himself, he became a private person. It means he could not function in relation to the external world. That's what it means to be private. He could not function in relation to that. People start with, I can't associate with them. The topics are just too boring. It's too social. It's not, it's prajalpa. I can't. Gradually, of course, then what is it? Avaishnav Tyag. That should be good enough. Association is not conducive to bhakti. Asat Sangha Tyag is the character, one of the characteristics of the Vaishnava. Give them to Asat Sangha. And we should look and see how much asat is in the sangha. Well, to what extent is not a sangha in the real sense of the term. This should be our life short. It's short. And there's an eternity to enter into. It's really worth living and experiencing. And there's Gramikata there, but it's okay. Village talk there. And village talk to everyone. What's going on in the Braj, where it's Krishna, what happened, taking messages back and forth, and so on. So Mahaprabhu, from his Madhya Lila, how he conducted himself, he conducted himself preaching, doing Nam Sankirtan, worshiping Jagannath. I mean, it wasn't a part-time thing, full-time, right? This caused him to be incapable of functioning, even in relation to the greater circle of his own devotees. When he fell into trance on one such occasion in the Antya Lila, and from in the Gambhira, which is just like a small, like 6x8 stone room, he even had Shankar the pillow, it was called, but he was placed there to protect Mahaprabhu and act as a pillow for him. Mahaprabhu would rest on his head, but he fell asleep, and Mahaprabhu's ecstasy enabled him to go under the door, crack in the door, and appear on the beach, and seeing the ocean, thought it was the moon, and he dove in, and the fisherman caught him in his net. And then the fisherman started exhibiting ecstatic symptoms. He didn't know what was happening to him. Meanwhile, it became known to Srup Damodar that Mahaprabhu was not in the room. We got to go find him. So he took the devotees. They went to look for him. And they met the fisherman. And Srup Damodar said, he's met Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This is what happens. Where is he? So he's over there in the net. I don't know, it's not a fish. It's not in the water. It's made me crazy, but it feels good. So then Srup Damodar led Kirtan and brought Mahaprabhu out of his ecstasy and the transformations of his body, like Jagannath's body transformations. And he became recognizable. What did Mahaprabhu say? Oh, somebody made a noise and brought me. I was in Vrindavan. Sridhar said, the kirtan of Swarup Damodar, Mahaprabhu characterized it as noise. What he was where the kirtan, see kirtan is meant to take us. We have to do Matashi Krishna Namani Nababed Graimandri Sevan Mukhe Hijibado Svayameva Spuratyata. If you want the spurti of Krishna, to see Krishna, you can't see with material senses. So what will we do? We will put the tongue, the name on our tongue with a serving ego. So we have a serving ego with which from your heart you chant, and the name then will take us into service, Lila Seva. And the name will recede to the background. Inside the name is all that Seva in a Lila. But this is your destiny. It's all there in the name. When it comes out, the name retires to the background, but the fullness of the name is manifest as the whole Braj Lila. You're living in it. This is the Nam Dharma. This is theology of the name. What's in a name? A lot in Krishna's name. Chant more, know more. Chant more, know more, love more, experience the more. Get a different set of eyes, as we were saying earlier. So this is Mahaprabhu's Ante-Lila. So relative to the verse, then what he saw in broad daylight, like a mound of sand on the beach, and he just all of a sudden took off running, chanting this verse. He thought the sea was the Jamuna, the sand dune was the Govardhana, and there he fell in trance. It said when he chanted this verse, fell into a trance, thinking the sand dune would be Govardhana. Internally, he found himself at Govardhana, and he was asked by the Sakis to put together flowers and bring them. And so some modern commentators, more modern, later day commentators, it's been popular amongst them to say, at this time, when Mahaprabhu chanted this verse and went internally, he tasted the Manjari Bhav, that is the dispensation, in which Mahaprabhu came to taste Radha Bhav. The closest that the jivas can get to taste Radha Bhav is to taste the Manjari Bhav, to be an maidservant of Radha, right? And by proximity to her and by identifying with her Bhav, it comes in a devotee. Mahaprabhu, of course, is Krishna himself, and he's Radha himself also. So what he experiences directly is Radha Bhav. The closest to that is that be in Manjari Bhav. So here it's taught by someone. But Mahaprabhu took the opportunity to also taste Manjari Bhav, which is his high, the Anarpita Charin Charat Karnayabhakinato Samarpaitam Unatojo Rasam. You can render it in different ways, but some of the ways. Unatojo Rasa. Ujvala Rasa means Madhuri Rasa. Unato Ujvala. The peak of Ujvala Rasa for the jivas. What am I giving to everybody? Let me taste that too. So it's thought that at that time, through this verse, so much is found at Govardhana. Viraj Govardhana Maharaj. So with that, then we can give initiation to long time devotee. since what, 1999?
Yeah.
That time she was in Dubai.
Yes, scientist.
I used to have a movie Charlie,
Yeah.
Charlie, he organized this, that summer, we used to call it, and I would get questions, and I would answer the questions. I think they came out every week. Questions, just questions from all the different songlets, different devotees would write me, and then I would answer. So she was in Dubai, Hindu in Dubai, and he wrote to me, Doctor, and about what she was thinking by that. Just my heart went out to her so much. Dubai, all places. I don't think it's like the most conducive place for Hinduism in the Middle East. Where the Muslims are not the biggest fans of Hindus. I hope stuff there. So I felt it. And then every now and then you would write something. So, but eventually we moved to Canada. We don't get it there. At Sharanagati, which is a rural community. I've been there once. My god sisters, Jamuna and Pinatari, and they had a house there, and they invited me there. I went there, Chitahari, and another boy. I spoke for a week on Pinatari, typically taken. Anyway, nice place there. Lots of bears. They have squirrels, they have bears. But and the Balkrishna, one of the original members there, good friend of mine, Charlie.
I bumped into.
Yeah, he started that. And son of call from Illinois, he's living there. So I've known him all this time, and to see that. I want to take a huge part. It's born in their life, but become a short member of our simple life. So there are 5 ingredients to this initiation as given by Bhakti Bhushan, and Bhakti Thakur took those and employed them. There are different ways in which initiation may be performed. I think there's 3 or 4 ways that's discussed in Hari Bhakti Vilas, but this is Bhakti Vinod system. She was very, I would say, Bhakti Bhushan played a prominent role in early questions on Bhakti Vinod Thakur. Prabhupada, my Prabhupada, dedicated to Prabhupada. So those ingredients are Nam, and I'll give you the name. I also give you the holy name. Yogya. So Yogya, Yogya Sankirtana prayer. Said in Bhagavatam that the Yogya for Kali Yuga is Nam Sankirtana. Here it also means the worship of the deity. Could be one or the other or both. So, 16 rounds. So, Gopal mantra and other relative mantras that are employed. That's not the only purpose, but they're employed there. So, Nam, India, Tapa. Tapa means like penance, like austerity, and so forth. As some of you know, in Ramanuja Sampradaya, they would brand the devotees with the symbols of Vishnu on their arm. But Mahaprabhu is very, with regard to austerity, he's very generous. So our austerity is passed on to Ekadasi, for example, Vajranastami, these type of things. And with regard to this ceremony, then rather than brand you with the Krishna symbols of Vishnu, we will write stamp here, stamp with tilak, and then Krishna on your body, on your head. So That's the Nam, Yogya, Tapa, Punga. Punga means the vertical tilak, not like the shy lights. Nam, Tapa, Nam, Yogya,
Tapa, Pundra, and Mantra.
Mantra. Yes. Put these trees first to get connected. Also, Kantimala. Clearly identified. It's like, that's a nice piece. What's happening? Huge conversation. These will save you. Faith, convictions, consciousness. And then tilak. Probably said his forehead is not with tilak, is a walking dead person. Yes. The beads you will chant with finger, thumb. Right. Start here, the big bead. See the big bead here, small bead. It's like the bottom of a tree trunk. You start there, go to the top. Get the fruit, come back down. So when I started chanting, before I got initiated, I was given beads by some devotees, so I chanted. And I used to think that, well, you go around like this and back, that's one round. So I was chanting 32 rounds. 3 months before I got initiated. I said, no, I'm doing it wrong. Got to be 16. So, anyway, so this is 1 round, this is 2 rounds. So let's be doing a chant. So ear, right ear. So your name is Shraddha. Sharanagati together. So please, all the devotees, all the Vaishnavas, give a blessing. Progress nicely from end to struggles of material. Prabhu Devi ki jai, Krishna Vrinda ki jai, Ram Krishna ki jai, Nanda ki jai, Giriraj Maharaj ki jai, Premanande. Okay.